Okay, so I don't know where actually I do know where the inspiration for this hit me. I recently started doing lessons again, and a question I got from one of my students was, so they were trying to learn a new role. I do coach for every role, although obviously jungle, what I main, is what I specialize in. And he was talking about learning a new role. And when you learn a new role, everyone will give you the obvious tips. But something not everyone will talk about is who should you learn first in the new role. And that got me thinking because you can give a person general knowledge, but that will never apply for every champion. You don't play Lee Sin the same way you play Nunu. You don't play Master Yi the same way you play like a Nautilus jungle. To give an example, there's a wide variance. Your goals on different champions are always going to be different. So, but that leaves the question: if you're learning, let's say you're learning jungle, that's what I'm going to cover today. What are the best champions to learn? And there's one obvious answer to. Well, there are several answers that came to my head immediately, but after I thought about it a bit, the one I definitely think is the most optimal would be Rek'Sai. Now, people will probably. I don't know. I don't know how many people would see that answer coming, but Rek'Sai is the champion that comes to mind for me first, for a multitude of reasons. Um, Most people would probably expecting, at least I think they'd be expecting something like Warwick or Lee Sin, and it's kind of funny because those champions are from completely different ends of the jungle spectrum. Warwick is a champion that's very simple, and basically impossible to get executed, and just very basic to pick up and play. Whereas Lee Sin's the complete opposite. He's extremely difficult to pick up and play for most people. So, why I don't agree fully with either of those picks, I'll break down why right now. Warwick, yes, if you are completely new to jungle and the mere thought of killing those pixelated wolves and golems as your main source of income all game absolutely frightens you, then go ahead. Okay, for your first ever jungle game, play Warwick, and you'll realize that this isn't the season 2 or the season 1 or whatever season jungle that you're thinking about. People, I probably shouldn't say this because I got executed because I'm very greedy, but you don't really get executed by the jungle anymore unless you're level 5 and you have no runes and you don't even know how to right click monsters. But the thing is, you don't really get executed. It's kind of hard to get executed nowadays if you have if you're not like an idiot. It's not like Spirit Stone days where like you could literally just sit there and tank for like 10 days and you still wouldn't die. But it's pretty hard to get executed nowadays if you're being smart about it. So if you're new to the jungle, like yeah, back then because you had to have runes back then, or you'd get executed because the jungle mobs were fucking insane back then. But that's not the case anymore. So and while the argument that Warwick is so easy, you just farm to 6 and you gank. Well, yeah, that's still true. But when you play Warwick, you're so limited. You can't. The whole aspect of like aggressive counter jungling and aggressive warding and counter ganking and punishing and pressuring, that's lost on Warwick. How the fuck do you pressure someone as a level 3 Warwick? You fucking can't. How do you counter gank without an ultimate up as Warwick? You can't. How do you walk into the enemy like Lee Sin's jungle? You can't. That's the thing about Warwick, which is why I don't think Warwick is a good champion to pick up if you want to learn how to play the jungle. You're so limited. You have a very limited spectrum of what you can do as Warwick jungle, which is why I don't think it's a good champion to learn if you want to learn how to play jungle. Yeah, you'll learn how to. Like, Warwick does teach you some things. Like, Warwick does teach you, well, most people overfarm anyway on Warwick if they don't know how to jungle because they're just like, oh, all of my camps are up and I'm healthy enough to do it. Why don't I go do the camp? But that's something for later. As for Lee Sin, he's too difficult if you're trying to learn the role, basically. So let's just talk about Rek'Sai here because this is already getting kind of long. Rek'Sai is a champion which I think is good to learn because, number one, Rek'Sai has early pressure, as early as level 2, although almost never. Generally, level 3 is much more preferred. Rek'Sai is a champion that has a lot of early pressure, and um, you have the ability to make a variety of plays. You're not limited to farming till 6 and ganking. And the thing about Rek'Sai, as opposed to all the, well, not all, because Kindred is a thing, but compared to other top tier junglers, at least in my eyes, such as Gragas, I don't want to say Lee Sin's top tier, but he's good. Nidalee, to a lesser extent, I guess, Kha'Zix. Like, these champions have skill shots in like Nidalee's case and Lee Sin's case, kind of defines their ability to make plays, especially early on. Whereas Rek'Sai, yeah, you gotta land your Qs sometimes, but it's not a defining feature of the champion. You can miss 90% of your Qs as Rek'Sai, which is actually kind of hard to do because it's a pretty easy skill shot comparatively to Lee Sin Q or Nidalee Q. But the thing about Rek'Sai Q is, yeah, well, it's a part of your kit that you should land. It's not catastrophic. When you gank as level 3 Lee Sin, you miss your Q. You gank as level 3 Nidalee, you miss your Q. It's probably a failed gank. You don't have the same problems with Rek'Sai. You're not limited mechanically. When you're learning a new role or a new champion, the last thing you want to do is to be gated mechanically, which is why I don't think you should play those champions when you're learning the role. Rek'Sai is a much more simple champion. You know, you walk behind him, or you walk to the side of him, you tunnel in, you knock up, you press Q, you press E, you just damage them, you try to land the knock up and you just go hard after that, and if they get away, they get away. That's how Rek'Sai works. But at the same time, Rek'Sai isn't like a Warwick, where while the champion mechanically isn't super difficult, you're still able to make other plays rather than just farm and gank when ultimate cooldown is up. Rek'Sai has the ability to counter jungle, to duel early. She's very mobile. She can go get deep wards in, and she has escape mechanisms more than just flash, which is what like a champion like Warwick has. Rek'Sai is a champion that has build flexibility. You don't see Warrior as much as often anymore, but it's definitely still a viable option with Strength of the Ages being such a strong mastery. So Rek'Sai has that. You have build flexibility. You can go tanky, which makes team fighting a lot easier, or you can go Warrior if you're more advanced and you realize that you need to pressure hard early in a game or something. And Rek'Sai's ultimate, as opposed to other champions, it's not like in Nidalee's case, obviously there's no level 6 power spike, real like important level 6 power spike to take into account. Whereas someone like Lee Sin, or someone like Warwick, who's defined by his level 6 power spike, you don't have that with Rek'Sai. You don't have to worry about you don't have to have in the back of your mind like, oh man, if I do this gank, I'm gonna delay my level 6, and that's gonna be bad. Like, no, your level 6 is just, it's for weaker players or newer players, it's kind of like a band-aid. It helps you get back into the game, or helps you. For some players that have actually told me this, they don't feel as bad when they are like down in farm as Rek'Sai because they know they have ultimate. Well, in the hands of a more experienced player, once let's say you're more experienced in the jungle and you start playing Rek'Sai, it's a tool for you to get ahead while still, or it's a tool for you to exert more map pressure while still staying even in farm, or supercharging your farm lead on another jungler. So Rek'Sai is flexible in that sense that she doesn't have to be defined by one thing. She doesn't have to only farm and gank when she's got a specific cooldown. She doesn't have to only gank, and yeah, you do fall off as Rek'Sai, but you don't have to just like super prioritize ganks while trying to balance your farm so you don't fall behind. Rek'Sai is a champion that's flexible in that sense, and it's a champion that's very simplistic to play, but also is at a higher level forces you to make some difficult decisions. When you're team fighting as Rek'Sai is not the greatest team fighter. You've got your knockup, you've got a fair amount of damage, and you're usually pretty bulky. But as Rek'Sai, when you're unburrowed, you don't have any crowd control anymore. You're literally just putting out damage. So while your unburrow does have a pretty short cooldown, it does have a cooldown. When you're team fights don't last that long. For 3 to 5 seconds is a long time in a team fight. Uh, so you have to know, and you learn this just from playing. You can't, like, yeah, you can go back and look at a replay, but you can't teach someone in the live setting, like, oh, this is when you unburrow on them. Like, it's something you learn because there's so many variables involved about doing it, and that's a that's the skill ceiling of the champion. Rek'Sai's skill floor is very, very low. There's definite nuance to the champion, like knowing which walls give you certain tunnel speed, knowing the very edge of your knockup range, knowing your damage, making sure to keep your Fury stacked as long as you can, so you come into a gank ready for full true damage. There's a bunch of small nuances to Rek'Sai, but at the same time, it's not a champion that's mechanically difficult and will gate you from doing certain things, for the most part, when you're learning. And it's a champion that has options, which is why I think Rek'Sai is the best champion to pick up if you're trying to learn how to jungle. If you're trying to improve on certain facets of your jungling, let's say counter jungling, then you can try someone like Nunu. Or if you're more advanced, you've like got mechanics down pat, then you can try someone like a Nidalee or a Lee Sin, who's got the same, the general, I don't want to say the general idea of the champion, but has the somewhat same tools available to them as someone like a Rek'Sai, who has a lot of power if used properly, but also has a very high skill ceiling. So, yeah. I don't know if I'll keep making stuff like this. I'd like to, but anyone who knows me personally knows that I am terrible, 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 terrible person at following through on stuff that I say. I've got a fucking 10-page Google Doc about how to play five games properly in League of Legends that I never finished. I've got plenty of unfinished guides, but this is something that isn't too hard of an investment for me to do. There's no webcam, which helps. I was originally thinking of doing this with a webcam, but I'm too lazy to look presentable. And I also didn't know how long this would be. There's no script for this. It's kind of just off the top of my head. But yeah, if you stuck around to watch all this, then thank you. Yeah, no guarantees on whether I'll do more of these, but we'll see. Thank you.